mynews.studio.
Imagine a coastal village, battered by relentless storms. Its ancient murals are fading, swept away. Now, for the first time, there's a global fund set up to help. But the big question is, will it be enough?
Today's date is December 2nd, 2025. Let's get into the basics. The Loss and Damage Fund, which is officially called the Fund for Responding to Loss and Damage, just opened its first call for funding requests at COP30 in Brazil. After years, even decades, of debate, it's finally operational. Is this what vulnerable nations have been waiting for?
Exactly. This is the first time the world's poorest and most climate-exposed countries have real access to international financing focused solely on climate disasters. It actually started as an idea back in 1991. Vanuatu and other small island states first called for a fund to help with rising seas. But it wasn't until COP28 in 2023 that all 198 countries agreed to set it up. Now, less than 2 years later, countries can apply. That's a major shift, from just talking about it to actually doing it.
But let's look at the numbers for a second. The first funding window is $250 million, and that's available through what's called the Barbados Implementation Modalities. Developing countries can start applying this month. It covers sudden disasters like hurricanes and slower crises such as sea level rise or desertification. But $250 million, can that really make a dent?
Not really. By July 2025, global pledges had only reached $768 million from 27 countries. Just for comparison, experts say loss and damage from climate change could cost anywhere from $150 to $300 billion a year by 2030. Some even estimate as much as $671 billion annually. Small island states alone could see cumulative losses of $56 billion by 2050. If warming hits 2 degrees Celsius. So yes, the fund is a step forward, but the gap between what's needed and what's available is enormous.
That's really the tension. The fund is progress, but it's not enough to answer the crisis. With that kind of shortfall, how will the fund decide who gets help first? Are there clear guidelines about who gets priority?
There are guidelines, and this is where the structure is important. The World Bank is acting as the interim host and trustee, but it doesn't control how funds are raised or spent. The actual decision-making lies with the fund board. That's a 26-member group, mostly from developing countries. They're in charge of setting priorities, eligibility, risk management, all of it. They report directly to the UN Climate Conference, and it's all transparent. Meetings are live-streamed, documents are public, and there are independent evaluations at regular intervals.
And the fund's scope isn't just about economic losses, right? It also recognizes non-economic impacts, like cultural heritage, traditional knowledge, and biodiversity. But how do you even measure or compensate for something that intangible?
It's a challenge. The fund tries to use community-based assessments, so the people affected have a say in how their losses are defined and recognized. But coming up with fair criteria for things like lost culture or biodiversity, that's still being worked out. The fund is going to have to develop new methods and, honestly, learn by doing.
Let's talk about logistics for a minute. The fund appointed its first executive director, Ibrahima Cheikh Diong, back in September 2024. And chose the Philippines as the board's host country. How does that affect the fund's day-to-day work?
It's a big step. With leadership in place and a secretariat up and running, the fund is now set to start processing applications and actually send out money. That's a milestone. But the real test is whether those funds reach the communities who need them most.
And the fund isn't working in isolation. There's a whole climate system around it. 3 main parts: the Warsaw International Mechanisms Executive Committee for Technical Knowledge, the Santiago Network for Technical Assistance, and the fund itself for finance. How do these pieces fit together?
The idea is that money alone isn't enough. Countries also need technical support to assess losses, improve governance, and build early warning systems. For example, Belize is putting together a national framework on loss and damage. El Salvador's latest analysis shows that without changes, damages could rise by a third by 2050. So, technical help and finance need to go hand in hand.
And what about accountability? Are there safeguards to make sure wealthy countries follow through on their promises and that the fund stays independent?
That's still an open question. Right now, pledges are under $800 million, which experts say is meager compared to the need. Developed countries have agreed to take the lead on funding, but nothing is legally binding. There's a review planned for COP33 in 2028. The World Bank's hosting will be checked against 11 specific conditions. If the fund isn't working as promised, that arrangement could change. So there's some accountability, but also a lot of uncertainty.
So right now, developing countries are about to send in their first proposals for the initial $250 million. What would real success look like in the months ahead?
It's not just about checking off boxes or setting up new institutions. Success would mean actually getting support to communities already facing irreversible losses, homes destroyed, livelihoods gone, even cultural heritage at risk. For the most vulnerable, this fund is both overdue recognition of climate injustice and a first, urgent step toward relief. But if it isn't scaled up, it won't be enough.
That's where we are, a historic fund, real and operating, but not yet at the scale needed. And the world is watching to see if promises turn into action.
Will the world step up, or will vulnerable countries be left waiting again?
Thanks for joining us. This episode was brought to you by mynews.studio. You can try it now for free.